Hello, I'm John, welcome to my channel, Disquiet and Dragons, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about aphantasia, what it is and how it affects my reading. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. Something a little bit different today. I'd like to talk about a characteristic that's known as aphantasia. If you haven't heard of aphantasia, it's a characteristic that was researched in 1880 by a gentleman named Francis Galton, and aphantasia, it's named after the Greek word phantasia, which means image or appearance, with the prefix of a or which means without, so without image. And that's pretty much what it is. Aphantasia is the characteristic of not being able to form mental images in your mind. In its simplest terms, you haven't got a mind's eye, and it is a characteristic that I have. It has been more recently researched by the University of Exeter, and they found that it's quite rare. I think about one person in every 1,000 has it, but there's two kinds. There's aphantasia, which you have from birth, which is what I have, so I've never known anything different, so I don't know, I can't really be envious of people that can conjure images in their mind because I've never known how to do it, so that's by the by. The other kind that you can get is actually, you can get it later on in life through either a head injury or if you're unfortunate enough to suffer from a mental illness, it can bring on aphantasia. But yeah, there's been quite a lot of really interesting research done into it that I've been reading about. I always wondered, I adore horror, you all know how much I love horror, but I've really struggled to find a horror novel that has scared me. Horror movies absolutely terrify me, but horror novels not so much. And there has actually been research into this, and they took some people who had self-diagnosed as having aphantasia and some like other test subjects without it, and while reading a book, the people that had aphantasia showed no they showed no fear. There was nothing in their breathing or their heart rate that showed that they were getting scared, whereas the people without aphantasia, they were obviously conjuring horrific images in their mind, and their hearts were racing and their breathing was getting faster. So after that, they actually showed the same group of people horrific photos, like scary photos or clips from horror movies, and then everybody was getting scared. So it just shows that, unfortunately, if you've got aphantasia, a scary book might not have the same effect on you. But yeah, it is something that I have. It was, you know, when I was a kid and people said mind's eye, I just thought it was, you know, just a term. I had no idea that people could see things in their mind. As I've grown up, you know, reading, it does make it a bit difficult at times, because these authors, they write these beautiful words and these descriptive worlds, and my mind, all I see is black in there. I can't see anything, I can't conjure images in my mind. So I thought it might be interesting today to talk about some of the little tricks and tips that I've got for if you have aphantasia, just trying to make your reading that little bit more interesting and involved. So one of the things I do when I'm out and about at places like this, Shugborough Hall, it's one of my favourite places. I love it here. Is I take loads of photos and videos, and when I come to choose a book, I do tend to stick to novels maybe set in England or the UK. The main reason is because I know what the UK looks like. I know what, if a book is set in an English wood, I know what an English wood looks like, and it just makes it a lot easier for me to follow a story when I know what the author is describing. It makes it easier when I know what that looks like. The other thing is, if I'm reading like fantasy, if it's like almost like medieval type fantasy, like say Song of Ice and Fire, that's awesome because I mean I'm lucky enough to live close to some castles. I know what a castle looks like, I know what a keep looks like, and you wouldn't think that just that would make such a difference, but just having that small frame of reference when you can't imagine what it looks like, just knowing what it looks like really helps. The other thing is when I do read maybe a science fiction or a fantasy book and it's a more fantastical world, if that book has got an adaptation, I'll watch the trailer to the TV show or the film, and then it just helps so much knowing what these characters look like. When I read A Song of Ice and Fire, I'd actually watched the first series of Game of Thrones before I even knew there was a book. So after the first series, I read all the books before the second series started, and knowing what Ned Stark looked like, even if it was Sean Bean, but knowing what all the characters look like was such a help to me, and it really did help with my enjoyment of the book. A recent example is I read the Farseer trilogy with Ellie from Bibbidi Bobbidi Books and Nikhil from Shelf Esteem, and at the start of the third book there's like a shack that the characters are living in, and it's like near a meadow, and the meadow like leads down to woods. Now I had a vague idea what that would look like, but I couldn't conjure it in my mind. But there's one of my walks where it was like a wildflower meadow that led to woods. So I just went there and took a load of video and took a load of photos, and just spending a couple of minutes with those pictures before I read the book just really enhanced my enjoyment and my ability to imagine where these characters were. So just being out and about and taking photos and video of stuff really helps me. The next tool that I utilise to help me is fan art and Google. Like DeviantArt and fan art in general, it's just amazing for giving me, helping me see what these characters look like. Recently for the Disquiet and Dragons book club we read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and there's some really diverse aliens in it, and as wonderful an author as Becky Chambers is, when she wrote the descriptions for like Dr. Chef, he's like a multi-limbed furry lobster caterpillar thing. In my head, no idea. All I could think of was that thing from Teddy Ruxpin when I was a kid and watched the cartoons. But I googled Dr. Chef images, and there was so much fan art, and then I could actually enjoy his character even more. I mean, he's brilliant anyway, but I could really enjoy his character because I knew what he looked like. And it must sound, if you can see things, it must sound like such a small thing, but it just made the book so much better for me. And as well as fan art, and this is a bit controversial, this one. I know what some people's thoughts on it. AI art generators are an absolute godsend for me. I recently read, well, I say recently, last year I read Hyperion, and there's a scene in it where there's this like land ship, and it's going through this purple sea of grass, and there's like different moons and all that kind of stuff. In my head, I can't imagine that, so I was really struggling. So I got just one of the free AI art generators, and I just put in sailboat in a sea of purple grass, or a field of purple grass at sunset, and it came up with this picture, and it really helped me. It helped me so much picture what Dan Simmons was trying to portray with his writing. And again, it just gives me just that little bit more enjoyment from my books, because I can, by utilising fan art and AI art generators, I can see what other readers can conjure in their minds. It just makes it so much easier. Another thing that I do, I mean, obviously there's adaptations, and I'll watch the trailers and all that kind of thing, but video games really help as well. When I was reading Assassin's Apprentice, and Robin Hobb was describing but keep, I know what the words individually mean, and I know that this place sounds amazing, but I just couldn't picture it in my head again. I've said that so many times in this video. So I knew it was like a castle on top of a cliff going down to like a seaport. Luckily, I play Skyrim a whole bunch, and it just reminded me of Solitude, which is this town, walled keep and town and castle on like this cliffway arch that goes down to docks and the sea. So but keep will forever look like Solitude in my head, but I don't really mind. It gives me something to think of. And again, luckily my favourite character, I know what a wolf looks like, so I was alright with Night Eyes. And the final little thing that I find helps me with my reading is authors that illustrate their books. They're my heroes. They are my absolute heroes, because for example, Brom, when I read Krampus, in the middle are a load of his illustrations of the main characters. So because of those, I know exactly what they look like, and I can just flick through to the pages and see what these characters look like. I know Clive Barker has illustrated some of his books. Yeah, illustrated books, they just make my life so much easier. So those are some of the apps and things that I do to try and put pictures to the books that I read. It doesn't always work, but most of the time it makes it better and a more fulfilling experience for me. Just having that little frame of reference can really make a big difference to reading a book for me. So as I say, it's not a woe is me thing, because I've never had a mind's eye. I don't know what it's like, so I imagine it's pretty good, but I'm not, in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing to get too upset about. But if you do watch this and you have Aphantasia, if any of these little tips have helped you, that's awesome. And if you do have Aphantasia and there's something that you do that I haven't listed in the video, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you do to get around this little quirky characteristic that we have. So that about brings me to the end of this video. I hope that you're all enjoying what you're reading and doing well wherever you are. As for me, I'm gonna enjoy the rest of my walk and get back home and I think I'm going to play some Monster Hunter. That one's just come out, so looking forward to that. But yeah, until the next video, you all take care of yourselves. I'll see you again soon. Bye.